Messi's coming into the MLS as the best player in the world. He's gonna win the Ballon d'Or. He's gonna win the Ballon d'Or as an Inter Miami player. Like, how mad is that?
Kylian Mbappe could have never played football if he grew up in the U.S., in my opinion.
Being from the States, you have to learn how things are over there because MLS is much different than the Premier League, and you're almost stepping into a different realm.
With the 2026 World Cup coming here and a new generation of fans start to become to discover the game, there's no telling where the game's going to be 10, 15, 20 years.
One game changed my life, and that's all it ever takes.
As you can tell from the background, from what he's wearing, we have a massive Barca fan and content creator. He lives here in North America. He covers one of the biggest clubs in the world. I'm a massive fan of the club myself. I have a feeling there's going to be just straight vibes on the pod today. We have BARCABOY103 in the studio. Hafed, how are you, my man?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Great. Love the introduction. How you doing?
Bro, I'm good, man. I'm good. I think I said before we went live today, I haven't had very many diehard Barca fans on this show, so I always have to keep my fandom just tame, kind of low key. Can't bring it out too much unless I have a Real Madrid fan on the show, in which case I flex that shit all day, every day. But with that said, bro, it's great to have you on, man. I feel like we're gonna, I don't know, we're gonna kind of just have a great conversation today about our fandom for this great club. Biggest club in the world, in my opinion. And more importantly, bro, how you were brought into this. Why Barcelona for you, where the fandom that you have for this beautiful game kind of kicked things off. But before we get to any of that and your journey, the audience already knows what question we're going to ask, right? Who are you today?
I'm someone who loves this club to death and hopes to make a living out of it, is what I would say.
I love that, bro. And look, man, I love that that's the goal you're going after. Whatever path really gets you there, I don't think it even matters too much. I think just being able to talk about this game and, of course, FC Barcelona in the manner in which you do for a living, I'll be honest, bro, it would be my dream as well. I think that there's a lot of us out there, right, who would love to be able to talk about this game full time as a career. I think you're well on your way to kind of making that happen. But it doesn't come without, right, this crazy journey that you've been on, the hours and hours and hours of content and the grind that you kind of put into this doesn't go unnoticed by any one of your fans that you have. This channel that you have now that's amassed over, what is it, 30, 40,000 subscribers. I mean, it's gotten pretty big. We'll talk about the channel. We'll link it down below. Everybody can go check it out for themselves. But the way we kind of start this show is we like to start at the beginning, right? I personally am not even fully aware of the earliest days of BARCABOY103. First off, how did you discover Barcelona as a North American fan, and who really brought you into this game?
Well, I knew, of course, about the sport of soccer, but I got into watching it in 2006 during the Italian winning World Cup. My cousin was a big soccer fan. I was funny enough, my love for soccer didn't even start in North America. It started where I'm from, in Libya and Africa. When I went there for the summer, he was a big soccer fan. He loved his favorite player was Riquelme, the Argentinian midfielder, and that's where the soccer love grew. Playing PES on the PlayStation, watching the World Cup, and then it started to grow. He told me about, there's this up and coming player for Argentina coming up named Messi, blah blah blah. I also, to be honest, I fell in love with Xavi and Iniesta first because they were in the not the Iniesta, but Xavi was in that Euro squad in 2008 with Spain.
Dude, he was so young.
Yeah. Then convincingly enough, they were all playing for the same teams. I'm like, there we go, problem solved.
That's your club, bro. I like that. I like that a lot, man. And yeah, there were so many players. I mean, how often has that been the case, right? The Spanish national team, Barcelona, and I mean, again, you can argue Real Madrid also kind of coming into a massive play on that side. But for the purposes of this conversation, your family, it sounds like, brought you in, right? They kind of showed you what they love about this game. That fandom just naturally carried over, bro. That was very, very much the case for myself as well. I feel like generationally, my family are Barcelona fans. I really didn't have a choice. My grandparents and my dad just hey, this is who you're supporting now. Anybody else you choose to support on top of this, great. More power to you. They didn't tell me who to support in the Premier League or who to support in Major League Soccer. It was just, this is our club no matter what. This is, you're the top of the mountain. Anybody else, beneath them, totally okay. And that was kind of my upbringing, right? I feel like, with a club this massive, it's probably pretty common. But where do you feel like your fandom took a step up, right? I mean, you started kind of noticing some players, your cousin told you about a few, but when did you really start kind of going down the rabbit hole of being a Barcelona fan, kind of going into all of the stories and developing your passion for individual players in the team?
It was after the '08 Euros where I started watching Barcelona, and during that season, it was Rijkaard's last season, a very, very crap season. Went into the sextuple season under Pep. That's where I started watching more regularly. I watched the Champions League final in Rome, but I was just watching it here and there. If my cousin's watching, I'd sit with him. I wasn't there, rushing to the TV screen. I think the love started for it was in the 2010 World Cup. That's what I started watching. Like I was watching, South Korea and Brazil, Uruguay, and I think it was Ghana in the group stages, and all these crazy games. And then you start doing your research, find out who's the good player, where they come from, all this stuff. And I was already a Barcelona fan going into the 2010 World Cup, but then after that, I just became addicted. I mean, this is at a point where I didn't even know Barcelona played in 3 different competitions. I thought there was only 2, the league and the Champions League. And here in North America, I only got to watch the Champions League because that's what they had on Sportsnet. They didn't have LaLiga on the channel. So what I had to do was I went to this, I think the website was called Goal, where I just sat there and just refreshed the score. Like every 2 minutes, I just go and refresh it just to see what the score is. Then go and find the crappy 144p highlights on YouTube.
We're so spoiled now, bro. We're so spoiled now.
That was me back in the day. I think I remember one day it was the Champions League. I think it was 2011-12 where we lost to Chelsea in the semifinal. I think the first leg we lost 1-0 where Didier Drogba scored. That game wasn't on Sportsnet. They had the other game on. So I was sitting there like every second refreshing. Drogba scored. I was like, God damn it. And I keep refreshing. I think Pedro scored and it was offside or something. Or I think that was against PG the next season. But like, yeah, crazy times. Then I realized there's La Liga. I'm like, okay, that's like 2 years. And then I'm like, I see one day Barcelona win the Copa del Rey. I'm like, what is that? I think it was against Athletic Bilbao where we won the 3-0 in Pep's last game. I'm like, damn, there's 3 competitions. Then I go, and then this is when I started following Barcelona more and more. Like, oh, it's the Super Cup in the summer. I'm like, okay, I'll tune into this. And I'm sitting there thinking, I'm there researching, like, how can I watch these games? I want to watch them.
Yep.
And they're like, oh, you have to pay for subscriptions. This is a time where North America didn't have European football. You had to get like other stuff. And then I found out about streaming, like, oh, it's free, it works. So I started doing that. And then once I had my first job, got some money, I'm like, all right, let's not watch the buffered 1 minute behind stream. Let's get the real deal stuff.
Yep.
And yeah, I don't think I've missed a Barcelona game since like 2012.
Wow, bro.
Yeah.
God, the level of commitment, man. I think that, you're the way you kind of depicted that, right? Discovering competition by competition. That's probably the case for a lot of us here in North America, right? Because like you mentioned, we're so spoiled now. Fans today who are in their teens or coming up on their early 20s, sometimes they don't understand that, bro, even as recently as 5-10 years ago, it just wasn't accessible. You know what I mean? Like, I remember having to watch bootleg streams, and it's hard to be an in-depth fan, someone who's truly like just out there supporting your club in every way, shape, or form, if you can't watch every single game. Like it doesn't feel like it would feel, obviously, being overseas in Europe. But coming back to just playing the layers back a little bit here, I also want to jump into, I mean, obviously you're building up your fandom a little bit at a time, but when your family kind of brought Barcelona to you, I think a question that I always ask when it comes to creators who support these massive clubs and fans in general is the why, right? And I think you and I both know Barcelona has this very unique history, very unique philosophy in terms of how the club has been built, the players that it chooses to invest in, and just how they play the game in general. What about Barcelona specifically stood out to you? I mean, when like I know when my dad kind of brought it to me when I was a kid, I remember the first big game I ever watched was Dino piecing apart Real Madrid, right? Like Ronaldinho completely going
Oh, the
in, getting the
3-0
stand,
one at the
yeah, the 3-0,
Bernabeu.
getting the standing ovation at the Bernabeu. Like for me, that was an iconic moment, and I remember thinking because I'd seen other soccer matches before, and I had never seen an away stadium, right? Or I should say a home stadium applaud the away team. I just never seen it. I was like, why are they doing that? Do they not hate those guys? Like, Dad, explain it to me. Like, what is going on here? And I didn't realize at the time how impactful that really was, how great Ronaldinho really was as a player. So for me, that memory always kind of sits at the top of my brain. But what was it about this club that when someone kind of passed the information to you and you started going down the rabbit hole, what stood out as a major reason as to why this club needs to be your club?
It was really my own choice because my father was just only a big fan of Zidane. He didn't really like any club, so to speak. He just loved him. I loved how he played. When my cousin was like introducing me to it, I was like loving these players like Xavi and Messi, and then I just realized they all play for the same team. I've heard of other players too before that, like Eto because he's big in Africa. Then there's Ronaldinho, the guy with the big smile, and I'm there thinking like they all play for the same team. Like might as well just hop on that train. So that
Yeah.
was my thinking from it, right? And it's like you could say that I started supporting Barcelona in their glory days, but I've seen some of their bad games during that time as well. And then of course I've suffered a lot over the past few years. I think I deserve it. But
I think we all deserve it.
yeah, but at that time I remember, that 07-08 season, the last season of Barca, we're losing like every other game and stuff like that. And I wasn't like
Yeah.
the most attached to it then as I was now, but I think you could say I just joined once we started to get in like super, super good. But of course, Barcelona is a historic club if you read about it and if you do your research. But it was more of my own decision based on the players I like watching in the national team. So you could say the national team games is what really got me into it. Then, of course, we all know club football is better. It's just the way to go now. But it's really the national teams that got me into it than me making my own choice.
Yeah. When you learned about the philosophy behind the club, right? I don't want to say it's not favoritism, right? But a lot of people feel that Barcelona just has this very strong Spanish agenda. And that, we prioritize obviously our own youth, our own academy products, but then from there, we also look towards the market. And I would say we tend to prioritize those who have come from the Spanish culture of football and bring those guys into the club. Maybe not in recent years, but that's what the foundation of the club has been built on, right? And we have this style of play, a style of play that has been tweaked and revolutionized over the years through managers like Pep Guardiola, for example. But even prior to Pep being here, right? Cruyff's beliefs, his philosophy, his system was implemented in a way that people still feel all the way around the globe to this day. Did any of that have an impact? I mean, were you too young, I think, to realize how big that really was for a lot of the Barcelona faithful? I mean, I'm just curious.
Oh, way too young, bro. I was like 6 or 7 years old. But I think we only had like Internet Explorer at that time, let alone what we got now. It was just me picking the player that, like, of course, now I've read up on it when I went to go to Barcelona, when I went in May. Go in the museum, you read in depth of what truly about this club from the ground up. You read all the difficulties they've been through and stuff like that. So I fully understand the history of the club, the philosophy, the style, and everything. But me getting into it was just liking players who played for their country and then realizing they all play for the same team, funnily enough.
Yeah, bro. Seriously. I mean, it's kind of interesting how it works, right? Yeah, I think, and that's almost how I would coach anybody who, like, for example, is trying to get into soccer, right? I had a couple friends of mine who don't really watch this game at all. They watch a lot of NBA, NFL, maybe. But everybody noticed the World Cup final, right? It was a crazy game. Everyone thought Argentina was going to run away with it. And of course, France, through Mbappe, finds a way to get back into it and makes it one of the most entertaining matches probably ever. And then you get a lot of fans who are coming out of the woodwork, sports fans saying, hey, talk to me about this game, bro. What should I know? Is every match like this? Like, what have I been missing out on? And the way that I almost coach any of those fans to come into this game is almost how you did it, right? Like, go watch individual players. I think if if you're a big fan of Messi, for example, watch how he plays. See if you like what he does on the field and see if you can pinpoint other individual players who do similar things, right? If you're watching Barcelona, go watch Lewandowski, go watch Pedri, go watch Gavi, whoever it may be, right? And see if that starts to just spark some curiosity, some real interest. And I think that what ultimately ends up happening is what you're watching on the pitch, the scope of that starts to widen, right? You start watching one player only when they get the ball, then you start watching what they do off the ball, and then you start watching more players on the pitch, and then that naturally just becomes like your favorite team because you become so accustomed to what you're seeing. So yeah, bro, I resonate heavily with kind of what you're talking about there. And you mentioned a lot of players individually just happen to be on this club playing for Barcelona. Do you have? I'm really curious with the era that you grew up in. Do you have a top five? Like a top five Barca players of all time in no particular order, who would it be? And it does not have to be within any specific generation, just all time from your perspective. Who's Barca Boy 103's top five?
In no order: Messi, Xavi, Iniesta, Busquets, Piqué. Those are my five.
I like that. The Piqué pick is I think certain people will hear that, right? And that'll be a little bit controversial in its own right? Maybe for a number of reasons you can kind of pick them. A lot of folks who are Spanish fans, at least that I know, that are not Barcelona fans, will be critical of Piqué. I think, and they'll reference things like, oh, if Rafa Marquez had never gotten injured, Piqué never would have had a career at Barcelona. I don't know if that's true. But I mean, why Piqué, not someone like Puyol or anybody else in there?
I think Piqué and Puyol are both two different defenders. I picked Piqué just for the longevity. I've watched him more. I know he grew up as my center back from the moment I started supporting the club till only last January. He's been at center back. So it's just that connection I have. And people always say like, oh, Piqué would have gone in if whether Rafa Marquez didn't get injured or Puyol wasn't moved to right back, blah, blah, blah. If the man played for Barcelona from 2008 to 2023, or 2022 technically, then he was good enough. And he was going to get his chance at some point. Piqué is a generational defender, whether people like to admit it or not. I mean, the FIFA Pro inclusions in Team of the Year, the accolades, you don't just get that from being in the best Spanish or Barcelona team. I mean, if he's there riding the bench, then okay, but he's starting week in, week out.
Yeah, he's not a Sergio Roberto type player.
Yeah, and that time, the managers were very particular in their starting 11, whether it's Pep Guardiola, Luis Enrique, Vicente del Bosque with Spain. They have unlimited players to pick from. But if you look at all those teams, there's one consistency. It's Piqué at center back. So I think, people make the big comparison of Piqué and Ramos. I think Ramos, I think Piqué is by far the better defender. I think Ramos gets a lot of praise because he scores some goals and does some, hop fake penalties and scores headers from a corner. I think defensively, what you want in a defender, Piqué has it all. Whether it's slide tackle, ground duels, aerial duels, keeping the ball in possession, reading the game. I think even Piqué, you could say Ramos is better going offensively, but Piqué scored goals too. I think Ramos has 100-something goals where Piqué has 60, so both for defenders is unreal. But there's always going to be that debate. And it's also even a debate internally. You could say at Barcelona who's better between Piqué and Puyol. So I think Piqué is top 5 center backs all time, at least.
Yeah. What about someone like Sergio Busquets? I remember when he decided that he was going to leave Barcelona, right? This was very recent, obviously. He's now signed with Inter Miami, could make his debut tonight in the Leagues Cup match against Cruz Azul. Obviously he's in the twilight years of his career, but at his height, I don't think we've ever seen a pivot like Sergio Busquets. I don't think we've ever seen a 6 or a defensive mid globally that's been able to do what he's done. A lot of fans will say that, or will cite that he benefited from having Xavi and Iniesta in front of him. But I don't think it's that straightforward. And you can argue that he held his game to a very high standard even after they exited the team, both of them. So with that said, though, why is Boosie? Because I will say this is my opinion. Why is Boosie the best defensive mid to have ever played this game?
When Busquets announced that he was leaving Barcelona, when the rumors were true, I made a goodbye video because I do make goodbye videos for all the legends, and it was about 10 minutes long. Of that 10 minutes, I was there for 9 minutes sitting there in silence, speechless, because that's what he does. People say, "Oh, he needs Xavi Iniesta." So do I. If you put me in the pivot, I would need Xavi Iniesta too. But if you look at Busquets over the past 4 years without Xavi Iniesta, he does the same thing. I mean, the man is just absolutely immaculate on the ball, and his vision and reading of the game is incredible. If you really like Vincent Del Bosque famously said, if you watch the game, you don't see Busquets. People just think he's crap because he has 40 pace on FIFA, where the case may be. But if you watch Busquets, you see the whole game, and that's what he does. Like Barcelona now are. It's gonna be interesting to see how we do this season with no Busquets in our pivot because, like I said with PK, since I've been watching Barcelona, it's always been him. And when you have someone that world class for that long time, I think right now he gets a lot of praise. Of course, as the best pivot of all time. But I think he'll even get more praise once the new generation of pivots start coming through, and you realize how good he was.
Yeah, I agree, man, wholeheartedly. I think nothing against Oriol Romeo. I think he came from La Masia. I think he will, find a way to, at a minimum, do his defensive duties. But I don't think I've ever seen, and probably I don't know how long it will be before I do see a defensive mid or a pivot that's able to retain possession the way that Busquets did, his vision on the ball, his ability to do the dirty work that, frankly, no other midfielder really wants to do, and to do it without any of the praise. Because, again, in that generational lineup, Xavi and Iniesta walked away with all of the praise, right? They were the only ones making the Ballon d'Or nominations. They were the only ones, getting these spots in World 11s. Busi, probably has the occasional one, but I think he is one of the most underrated midfielders of all time. And I think that you, like you said already, we will see how impactful he was when we don't have the chance to see him in this Barcelona side anymore. That will happen this coming season. I don't think Barcelona will just out of nowhere not be able to figure it out. It will just look very different. And I don't know. I hope that the youth that we have is able to kind of pick up the pieces and keep it moving. But it is my biggest, if there was a concern that I had going into the season, it's that position, because we obviously didn't get who we wanted.
I always say that the two most irreplaceable footballers in Barcelona's history is Messi and Busquets, because you can get another defender like PK. Araujo's there. There's been the Puyols and stuff like this. In the midfield, Pedro coming in. I'm not comparing him to Iniesta, but the level is there. When Pedro's at his peak, we'll discuss who is close to Iniesta or not. But Busquets is just like, even now, I don't even know what to say. I think he gets his praise now a lot as the best pivot of all time, because I don't really think anyone comes close. But a few years down the line, people will truly realize.
Yeah, I think so too, bro. And look, I think there's also, I think, for diehard Barca fans like us, it's hard not to be romantic about that generation of talent that came through in the late 2000s, early 2010s. Arguably the greatest side of all time to ever have played, right, in 2011, and how immense that season was, how impactful. I mean, all five of those players that you just mentioned were namestays in that lineup, will probably go down to some of the greatest players of all time. But it hasn't been all as romantic as that era was, right? The pain and the suffering since that era, and since Guardiola has kind of exited, and I know we had obviously some great run-ins with Luis Enrique in 2015, and MSN, lit the world on fire, and we've had just some crazy talent come through this door, but equally, we've also had that talent at some points throughout this journey exit, right? And I don't want to make anybody tear up on this pod. I don't want to piss anybody off, but at the end of the day, right, with the good, there does come the bad. And you were probably pretty young for the Figo move, right? For him moving from Real Madrid, from Barcelona to Real Madrid, and the manner in which he did. I was decently young, but I do remember that.
I remember in diapers.
Yeah, I remember thinking. I remember seeing my dad upset. I remember my dad cursing like I'd never seen him curse at the TV before. I remember the pig's head moment and how iconic that really was. And for the first time, it was because my mom, isn't like my dad, where she's almost kind of the mindset of like, hey, it's a game. I don't know why people take it that seriously. Sometimes, right? She's just like, hey, no one should be throwing a pig's head onto a field at an actual live soccer match. Like that's probably too much. But my dad understood it, and it was from his perspective the biggest act of disloyalty anybody could ever do. In all honesty, but comparing that to what this new generation of fans knows, I would say the most contentious transfer that we've seen since then has likely been the Neymar saga. I won't throw Messi in there because he was really kind of forced out due to finances and due to bad leadership. That wasn't his fault. But with the Neymar saga, you can strongly argue. I remember that summer. I remember Piqué posting pictures trying to get him to stay. I remember everything his dad was claiming that Neymar deserved after the La Remontada, the PSG comeback. After beating a team 6-1, you almost scratch your head at the idea of him going to that club. But he did it, right? And I remember when that happened, him forcing his own move, taking the transfer fee to the Barcelona offices himself. How, I don't know, in your opinion, is that the most controversial move away from the club that you've seen in your lifetime?
In my lifetime, yes. I think it was the first moment where I actually cried in sadness about Barcelona. Like I wasn't sitting there crying, but like I cried a bit because
it was depressing, bro.
It's not even that. Just the whole entire saga leading up to it. I remember it like it was yesterday. You had the PK Siqueira, you had Messi and Suarez saying we'll stay for one more year, then leave, and you can be the king. The bust up with Nelson Semedo in training. All this stuff to just go for money. It's just, and the silver lining of this is that I know for a fact, that since Neymar left PSG, every single summer he's trying to come back, because those who leave Barcelona always regret it. That's the reality of the case. He made his decision, and he can die on it for all I care.
So do you like? I know again the old generation, the boomers, the old heads. Figo is the number one traitor, the public enemy number one. He will go down as that forever. There's no recovery. Like that will be his legacy. So much so that there was a fucking Netflix special made for it. With Neymar, do you feel like because he made that move, it taints his legacy a little bit, and this will be a major milestone? You could argue it could be the most headlines he's really seen in this latter stage of his career.
I definitely don't think he's a traitor. I think it was a decision that he had on the table and he decided it. It absolutely taints his Barcelona legacy for sure. I mean, he has more goals than Ronaldinho, but for me, Ronaldinho is a much bigger legend of Barcelona than Neymar. I don't even consider Neymar a Barcelona legend. I consider him an icon. Because I think a lot of people just say he's a good player for the club, so he's a legend. That's not how I interpret it. Like, a lot of people think Rakitic is a Barcelona legend. I disagree. I think he's an icon. I think he's a player who came in, played well. David Villa, icon. Pedro, I think you can make a case for both, but I would push him towards a bit of an icon. So you gotta make that separation, right? For me, Neymar is neither of them. But some people could argue that he's an icon. I think he had, yes, 2 very good years at the club, but when you leave in that kind of manner, it of course stays. We could say statistically, factually, he's a Barcelona icon, but in my opinion, he is not.
Yeah, that's fair, bro. That's fair. I kind of get what you mean by that, by the way. You know, the icon versus legend. I don't know. I was too young to really know if Figo was necessarily a legend of Barcelona. I don't think you could really say that because he had just come off the back of winning us La Liga title and doing it in massive fashion, kind of shitting on Real Madrid in the process.
To be fair, he was kind of in that Neymar phase too. He's kind of building his stats up, and then he dipped. Similar thing. He technically won the Ballon d'Or with Barcelona. He joined Real Madrid, and that season he was given the Ballon d'Or for the best player in the world, which he spent the majority of the time in Barcelona. Real Madrid counted as their Ballon d'Or. I don't even think Barcelona counted as their Ballon d'Or, but he was on that similar train. But just the way he left and to the team he left, of course, his situation is way worse than Neymar's.
Yeah. Way worse. Again, if Neymar had gone to Real Madrid after being at Barcelona, Oh man, I can't. I don't even. I can't. I already remember what the
was
reactions were like.
The motherfucker was thinking about it. And what was it, 2019, where
Yeah.
yeah, I think Real Madrid were talking to him. He's like, "Oh, Barcelona don't come in for me, then I'll happily go." I think at that point, he just wanted out of PSG, and I'm like, broski, what are you moving at? Like, just making these weird decisions. The fans over here already hate you, and you're making it worse by going to Madrid. All that. If he came to the Camp Nou in the Real Madrid shirt, you would have seen more than pig heads thrown for sure.
Yeah, I agree, bro. I think it still haunts me to this day a little bit because you almost wonder what Barcelona could have done for another 2, maybe 3 seasons had he stayed. How much bigger his legacy with the club could have
Don't
been.
say that, man.
I mean, I'm just saying, bro. Look. I know it's tough. Look, he's a snake to everybody. He really is.
I think we would have won the Champions League when
We went to
who won it?
Liverpool.
No, Madrid when we lost to Rome. I think we would have won the Champions League that year if we had Neymar.
Oh yeah, I think so too.
Even the Liverpool one. Even the Liverpool one.
Both of those years
that.
where we bottled it. I mean, but at the end of the day, like it's one of those things where you like to hope that he would have been the difference maker, like he was against PSG in that comeback. But at the end of the day, it's just it's I don't know, man. I still get curious about like what our trophy count and our cabinet would look like had he just decided to put his ego aside and realize that, dude, everybody technically takes a backseat to Messi. He's the greatest of all time. There's no way that, and Mbappe's seeing that now, bro. Mbappe's seeing that now. How many rumors did we hear when Messi went over to PSG? And before any ball was actually kicked, is this the greatest front three of all time? And it's like, we haven't even seen them play yet.
I honestly thought they were going to win a Champions League. I tweeted that in their first 2 years they'd win one because that front three is on paper too good, but on the pitch they didn't really connect well. But Ibrahimovic said it well too. He said that when you're at, this is why he left too, and respect him for it. He was there for a year, didn't like it, and dipped. When you're at Barcelona, Messi's the king, and literally nothing you can do will change it. You could have a season of 50 goals and assists, but Messi has a season of 30 goals and 20 assists. He's still the king.
That's fair,
so
bro.
Even like Suarez had that incredible season in the 2015-16 season where he had more goals than Messi. I think he had a bit less only assists than Messi, but Messi's Messi,
Yeah.
They're, like I always say when I talk about him on my channel, the greatest human being to ever touch a soccer or football.
Yep. I agree, bro, wholeheartedly. So moving away from, the contentious move that Neymar made, I think at the end of the day, bro, we can all agree. I think, again, in my lifetime, Figo and Neymar just created the most controversy that we've seen from a transfer saga. I think at the end of the day, it also does beg the question because of how big this club is. I don't know, bro. You've been creating content for this club for a while. You've also been a fan of this club for a while. How many transfer rumors have we heard about any one big name player out there that may or may not be coming to this club? There's been some that we've gotten a lot of them, right? Our pool as a club is massive, but equally, I think there's also been some that, just got away. And I imagine from your perspective, bro, there has to be a white whale out there, right? Someone that we've been linked with forever. We could have maybe gone out there and gotten. It didn't work out for one of a couple different reasons. In your opinion, who's the player that like you would have loved to bring to the Camp Nou, but it just never came to fruition in real life?
There's a couple that I can think off the top of my head. Firstly is Marco Verratti.
That's a good one.
I wanted him so badly. Other one is Matthijs de Ligt. And that summer we got him and Frankie, we were supposed to get him and Frankie for $150 million. At the time, de Ligt was 18 years old and like one of the best center backs in the world. And I was thinking that was a time when PK was slowing down because that time was like 2019. And that's when his downfall kind of started. We're like, okay, bringing de Ligt. PK is gone the next year. I've always wanted Thiago to come back. Thiago Alcantara.
Yep.
There were some rumors during COVID time, but of course, COVID is COVID. I'm trying to think, is there anyone else who I really, really wanted? I also really wanted Rodri when he left Villarreal to go to Atletico Madrid.
Yep.
I thought he could come in, 1 or 2 years, and Busquets would leave and he'd take over. Apart from that, you have to like remind me because we get linked to everyone under the sun. I'm trying to think like
Yeah, we do. We get linked to literally everybody, and
I'm thinking like at the end of Bartomeo's time, we signed so many crap players that we were linked with so many good players.
Well, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this then. Let's go to that part of the conversation. We've spent a lot of money in recent years, and you can argue that it's completely just flopped on our heads in a lot of different ways. We've made some good investments, don't get me wrong, but 9 times out of 10, the best investments Barcelona make are in its youth or in youth in general when it comes to the market. Finding players before they hit their prime. When we try to buy players who are in their prime, at least in recent seasons, it hasn't always panned out for the best. And the question that I tend to ask a lot of Barcelona fans on that front is, who do you consider to be the bigger flop? Coutinho or Griezmann?
Coutinho. What question is that?
Why?
Coutinho had a good 4 months when he joined in January. I heard that he was disgustingly shit. Griezmann had a good season. He came in, COVID and stuff, first season adapting, no problem. That first season under Koeman, the 2020-2021 season, we had some fire kits that season, by the way. The black kit and the home kit was good.
Mm-hmm.
He was one of the best players. He got double figures in goals and assists, came up in pivotal moments. The issue with Griezmann that season, he had a lot of spells where he wasn't playing well. So when we were playing the 4-3-3, he was starting at the right wing, left wing, didn't really work. We then switched to 4-2-3-1. He was playing in the cam role, center forward, played very, very well. We then switched to the 3-5-2. He's playing as a left striker, didn't play well when it comes moving to the cam. He's playing very, very well. So he had up and down moments that season, but I think overall, consistently, he played very, very well. I think he had a very good season. Then, of course, we were broke, so we had to sell him.
What if Coutinho? What if we had given Coutinho as much time as we gave Ousmane Dembele?
The reason why we give Dembele a lot of time is because we see the talent and we see the potential there. When he steps on the pitch, you see the magic he does, his dribbling, his pace. But he always gets injured, and thinking, if he just doesn't get injured, he'll play well. We've seen that. With Coutinho, it's just been mid every single time he gets the chance. Like that. This is what I'm saying. That 18-19 season, if we had Neymar, we would have won the treble. We were 1 week away with the treble with Coutinho at left wing, a center attacking midfielder at left wing, with Messi carrying this whole entire city on his back.
To be fair, he did play that same position at Liverpool. So there's like an argument that like he could have been successful there.
He played that position at Liverpool a little bit when they wanted to adapt to a different style of play to their opponents. Because at that time, Pellegrini was doing some mad tactics in big games, so they kind of put Coutinho there to combat that. Coutinho's best games have always been either as a number 8 in a 4-3-3 on the left side of the interior, or in the middle of the pitch as an attacking midfielder, center forward, whatever. A lot of you can say this with a lot of attacking midfielders. A lot of people don't really have a lot of clubs don't really have that as a set position. So they stick those players on the wing, whether it's Coutinho, Thomas Muller, Christian Eriksen. De Bruyne played on the wing a bit when he first came from Wolfsburg as well. Ozil played on the wing a lot for Arsenal as well. It's always that sense because that player is so good, so creative. You can't just leave him on the bench. So you shoehorn him into the side. I'm on the left. He'll attract defenders, whip in some balls, create some spaces. With Coutinho, that happened a bit during that season, but it never came to fruition. He was always playing mid. He's putting in 5 and 6 out of 10s every single week. Got a goal here and there. Messi gave him that red ribbon. He scored a couple goals in the space of 2 weeks. Apart from that, he was absolutely dead. And he was sat on like 500K a week as well.
He did. His wages were insane. He did. His agent should be applauded for that alone. I think he did have that insane banger against Manchester United in the quarterfinals of the Champions League, but that was really kind of it.
That's his trademark. I remember even when he first came. So when he first came to Barcelona in January, under Valverde's first season, we were playing the 4-4-2. He had, I think, Andre Gomes on the left, Busquets, Rakitic in the middle, then Paulinho on the right.
Yeah.
Dropped Gomes for Coutinho because Coutinho could play on that left side. Played very well. He scored bangers against Real Sociedad, Girona, got a hat trick against Levante when our streak broke for the unbeaten run. So he played very well. new season comes in, we sign Arturo Vidal, so we kind of have our midfield set. You're thinking, okay, you spent 140 million on this guy, 130. You gotta put him in, stick him in on the left. But at that moment, I remember we started our team with Busquets, Rakitic, and Artur as our midfield three. And the front three was Dembele off the left, Messi, Suarez. And Dembele was playing well. He got some goals, then he got injured. So then we brought in, I think, Arturo Vidal to make it like a 4-4-2. Everyone's saying, oh, put Coutinho on the left, have a midfield three of Busquets, Rakitic, and Arturo Vidal. That didn't really work. And we brought in Arthur from Ball Control, and then that worked a bit better. Coutinho was only there because playing left wing because Dembele was out for the season, and we had no one else. I even forget who was on the bench. I think we had Deulofeu until January. Then we shipped him out on loan. We had
Deulofeu.
I don't even know who else we had. Who was our other forward? It wasn't Paco. I don't even know. Our squad was
in what season?
18-19, because at that point we only had a good starting lineup. We had no depth whatsoever. I don't even know. We brought in Yuri Mina in January as well.
Well, then maybe
Suarez. We played Dennis Suarez a lot on the wing.
Maybe Coutinho versus Griezmann was the wrong question. Maybe it's someone like Coutinho versus Arda Turan, right? Like who was the bigger flop in that scenario?
I still think it's Coutinho, honestly.
Because of the price tag, right? Arda Turan was like just an add-on.
Not even that. Arda Turan always played well against the crap teams. When we played like Borussia Mönchengladbach in the Champions League, or like a Celta Vigo at home, he always got like a hat-trick or a brace here and there. So he always played well.
Yeah.
When his moment came, he was basically a squad player who come in big games for the Gala 11. That was his kind of role, and he kind of did well. I mean, yes, for the price that we paid for him, I think it was like 50 million, which is a lot. Didn't really come to fruition, but yeah, I think it's better than Coutinho.
Yeah, when you pay, I don't know what that final price tag was, 110 or whatever it is million.
For Coutinho, I think it was. I think the add-ons got to 140 million euros because we got I think it was 130 initial fee, and there was like 40 million in variables or 30 million in variables because Liverpool wanted 150, but we offered 130 with. We got to 160, so we get 10 million more, but more in variables, and then they.
Dude, the Neymar deal screwed us in so many ways because it was so visible. We had cash. It was like
not even that. In every way. losing the one of the probably second best player in the world, third best player in the world at that point as well. But then, like you said, everyone knows we have money, and the people spending the money are absolutely complete and utter dumbasses. So it just didn't leave you with anything.
Yeah. Yeah, man, bad leadership. I agree with you wholeheartedly, man. And look, Coutinho, I think he does probably go down in the history of Barcelona as the worst transfer of all time. Probably one of the worst transfers of all time. And generally,
I think for the price, yes, we've had obviously terrible other transfers, but I think for the price,
for the level of investment, with the market being where it was, that probably was a record transfer fee for the club. Yeah. So So it's just like for all those reasons, man. And he didn't even stick around long enough for us to see any kind of that money back. I don't know. I almost wanted to stick around just to see it.
When we had the 4-2-3-1 under Coleman, I was really excited to see him, playing center attacking position. But then when he got his chance, he got injured. So
yeah, it is what it is,
I guess.
Yeah, it is what it is. And that, of course, scaled into Messi moving on, which, again, we talked about it before. Not a super controversial thing. I think the only thing that was controversial was the fact that we all felt going into that day. I remember that day. I remember waking up.
Live stream for me, bro. I have video proof of that.
I just remember thinking, okay, we're gonna sign him. He's gonna, re-sign him. We're gonna try and make him happy for his last few years while he's here. I'm excited. At least we have Messi, right? With all the crazy COVID news, the financial mess that we're in, at least we have Messi. And then the bomb gets dropped. You hear that he walks out of the offices not having signed anything, and
from Marca as well, Madrid newspaper.
I know, and then we all kind of know where it's going at that point. PSG is going to jump on it immediately. It felt like Neymar 2.0, did it not? At least in some form or fashion, with the sentiment behind it.
I mean, I cried, but I think the two scenarios were just so different because
they were.
we knew that PSG activated his release clause. So it was up to Neymar to decide. Either he stayed or he left. And he dragged that on for like, what, a week and a half, 2 weeks. With Messi, we all knew I think he left the Argentina camp like mid-June. No, sorry, mid-June, May.
Mm-hmm.
We all knew he was going to renew. Joan Laporta was essentially elected to renew him, and also he was the best candidate. He wins the Copa America. You're thinking, oh yeah, things are going great. Oh, he's gonna go on vacation for 2 weeks, and August the 8th, he's gonna come back, sign it. August the 8th comes, everyone's like, yep, he's coming, sign it, it's gonna be done. Then he walks out without signing it. Then you hear all the reports that La Liga tried to told Barcelona they had to sign the CBC agreement or else they couldn't renew Messi, so they kind of held us a ransom. CBC deal would have corrupted us more and put us more into debt than letting Messi go. So Laporta made the decision. That's the reality of the situation. It's tough. I think Laporta didn't handle it to the best of his abilities. I think, waiting until the last day to figure that out is obviously minus points, but I think that he did the best that he could with the situation he's come in. I mean, he had to get 2 audits to figure out what the situation of the club is, how much we're in the hole, and things like that. And that, of course, takes time. Sounds like I'm making excuses for Laporta, but the reality is that everything just didn't go our way.
Did you hold anything against Laporta or Barca at that time?
Never, no, because if I just knew the only problem with it was because that was last second. If you told me this in July before the Copa America, I think everyone would have been like, it is what it is. Because the club was fucked. You're talking no room to register any players. You're begging players on your knees to take salary reductions or salary deferrals. And you have, at that time in the squad when Messi was still there, you had like Coutinho on $500,000. You had Ter Stegen on 400, De Jong on 400. PK was on 300 with deferrals before from COVID that led to like 400. Busquets was on 400,000. Jordi Alba was on 300,000. Roberto, I think, was on $250,000. You couldn't fit Messi's wage, and Messi did the best he could, right? He did everything from his side. The La Liga rules say that if you sign a renewal, you can only take a 50% salary reduction, which Messi did. I think he was earning 800 or something like that. He brought it down to 400. That's the most that he can do. He said, I think, all this theory about whether he would have played for free or not is bullshit because yeah. I love Barcelona, but would I make YouTube videos for free? No. Would I work for Barcelona for free? Different story. Nonetheless, that's just all hypotheticals, if buts and maybes. The reality is that no one knew we all knew we were in the hole. No one knew how badly we were in the hole. And once we realized that, it came too close to the deadline.
Yeah, and it was really bad. And I don't think anybody realized it. And what's kind of crazy, bro, is that we were dragged through the fucking mud because of finances, when in reality, you find out years later, fast forward to 2022, 23, that there are other clubs out there that had some interesting financial situations, breaching financial fair play rules, doing things that I think that Barcelona would have been crucified for had it been our club. But I don't know.
Different countries, though, right? Because with the Premier League, they have a board. The FA is a board. But in La Liga, you're run by one little pinhead, Javier Tebas, and he decides everything. And if he wants to have a salary cap in his league to make us not competitive, then that's the case. Even today, we're July 21st, 2023. There's 20 teams, of course, in each league, 20 teams in La Liga. Only 2 new signings have been registered. Arda Güler for Real Madrid and I think Lato for Mallorca. Those are the only 2 signings officially registered to play.
And how many exits have we had, right? That's crazy.
And remember, Madrid have signed Jude Bellingham and Jose Lu on a loan. Barcelona have signed 3 players, of course, one coming in another time. So it's not just Barcelona. I think even Betis are really in the hole as well. They have sell. Even now Villarreal are going to sell Chapecoense, one of their best players, and a man that makes me scared for my life, to AC Milan for 17 million.
Oh, so yeah, it's so discouraging, bro. I mean, hopefully Tebas figures this shit out because I
think he's gonna figure this out, bro. He's been at this since like 2019. I think the elections are next year, so hopefully he doesnn't get reelected.
Yeah, hopefully he doesn't get reelected. But I do think no matter what, bro, even if you're looking at it from a money perspective, like even looking at it from that alone, you have to at some point see the light and realize that you are doing so much damage to this league. And and its ability to stand amongst. I mean, didn't we actually go down in the top 5 European rankings as well? We're no longer like 2, we're like 5 or something, or 4 or 5 in terms of.
That's all subject to opinion and stuff like that. Theoretically, we're still a top 5 league, but he doesn't care. He's some former Nazi prick that just wants to do what he wants to do. That's
yeah, it is what it is,
reality of it.
man. Yeah, and so we'll see if the league can bounce back. But with that said, that move, fast forwarding to this year, right, in 2023, it did somewhat prevent, of course, Messi from coming back to Barcelona when his PSG contract ended. And now, bro, he's in Major League Soccer, preparing potentially for his debut tonight with Inter Miami against Cruz Azul. Him and Boosie kind of tearing it up together. I'm going to ask you 2 questions on this because we are getting a little bit close to time. One is, do you think, regardless of what the result is tonight, regardless of a lot of fans think that Messi, because he's the GOAT, is going to be able to turn things around for Inter Miami this season alone? And that may happen, that may or may not happen. Who knows, right? But long term, right? Let's say 2 to 3 years in Major League Soccer. Beckham tried it back in 07. The league was in a wildly different position back then. But he was like the major. Going from Real Madrid to LA Galaxy was so unfathomable for so many fans. It was just kind of crazy. Paparazzi were everywhere when he got here. And Major League Soccer kind of shifted into this new era, at least slightly. With Messi, you can argue there's going to be an even way bigger impact. Do you think Major League, like, he can get Major League Soccer to a point where in this short time, let's say a 2 or 3 year window, to a point where it's considered a viable league for global talent, not just this. And it's not a retirement league now. We are producing talent that does go on to do things in other leagues. Look at Miguel Almiron going from Atlanta United to Newcastle and being relevant there for more than a few years. But can he now elevate the league to another level where it's able to attract talent on a global scale earlier in their careers?
I think Messi will bring eyes, of course, to the MLS. I think he will make Americans like soccer. Maybe some kids start playing and they become the best player in the world. Definitely that's possible. But I think once Messi leaves the MLS, the eyes will leave as well. The reality is that those type of leagues are only going to be attracted and interested by those who live there. When you're in Europe, it's a different level. And that's the reality. If you put MLS in the Champions League, then I think they can get eyes forever. But that's why a lot of these leagues bring in stars. You have Saudi with Ronaldo, MLS with Messi, even the South American leagues, they're bringing back some old players like back in the day, like Tevez and things like that. Cavani might go there now after terminating his contract with Valencia to bring somewhat of eyes there. But the reality is, if you're not in Europe, you will not get those concrete eyes. I think Messi will definitely bring viewership with the World Cup coming there as well. He'll maybe make a lot of kids, local kids fans there, but then those local kids are gonna look at the big leagues. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So
that's how I personally see it. Like for me, I'm in Canada, so I've been watching the MLS. TFC absolutely in the mud right now, but nonetheless, it's difficult for the people in Spain and stuff like that to England to watch MLS on a regular basis if there's nothing to watch for.
Yeah, I agree. And now you got Europeans asking, what is GAM, what's TAM, what are the DP rules, trying to understand how the hell MLS works. I think, for a lot of us who
I don't even understand it either. I don't even understand it.
Yeah, bro, it's such a unique league. And hopefully Messi coming to the States, because everyone in Major League Soccer is complaining right now about how Inter Miami and Major League Soccer are bending the rules for all these DPs to come to the club and this and that. And it's like, well, hopefully it also just allows for them to start realizing how backwards those rules really are and how we need to be a little more flexible on those. But
if you're gonna
yeah,
bend
man,
the rules, you're gonna bend it for the best
exactly.
player in the world. Like Messi's coming into the MLS as the best player in the world. He's gonna win the Ballon d'Or. He's gonna win the Ballon d'Or as an Inter Miami player.
Yeah, but
Like,
again, the MLS sickos will still be like, but nobody's above, nobody's bigger than the league or the club. I'm like, you're wrong, 1000% you're wrong. Messi is bigger.
I think when it comes to the top clubs, like your Bayerns, you remember that people have been doing it since the 80s. Then yes, when it comes to Inter Miami, who were founded 4 years ago, then obviously yes,
he's bigger. He's bigger, and
Yes.
at this moment in time, and for that reason, you bend the rules. And going into that, right, and how big MLS can get. Before we kind of touch on the final question, before we get there, I want to ask you, because it was a big talking point this week. I mean, I can't even tell you how many videos I saw on this, but there, of course, the egotistical man himself had to make himself relevant, right, from Saudi. I say that because there's no other reason for it, right? It's the same thing with the Piers Morgan interview. There is no other reason for Cristiano Ronaldo to do things in the manner in which he does, unless he just wants to be talked about. And that's okay. I think that that's fine, right? He left Europe and you need to stay relevant. But it's an interesting comparison. The Saudi League versus Major League Soccer. And of course, he compared it because you compare Messi versus Ronaldo. But do you think his claims have any legs to stand on? Do you think the Saudi League, especially with all the talent they're signing right now, and all the money they're throwing out there, is it bigger and better than Major League Soccer right now?
No, but I would argue that it could be more attractive. Like, I would rather watch Al Nassr with Ronaldo, Sadio Mane, and all these players versus El Hilal with, Savage, Ruben Neves, Koulibaly than watch TFC versus, I don't know, Real Salt Lake. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think the MLS is 100% a bigger league. I don't think Saudi will ever. But I mean, with the money they're spending on this track, you never know. But I think right now MLS is definitely cleared. I think Ronaldo is saying that for his own sanity. He goes, says that, then lose back-to-back preseason games. Not even just losing them, getting destroyed in them.
Yeah.
So I see what he's trying to say, because he's trying to say, oh, these players are coming here. Like Koulibaly, for example. Let's just take him hypothetically. If Saudi Arabia could offer him a contract worth $50 million, and I don't know team off the top of my head, LAFC offer him $20 million, he's gonna go to Saudi Arabia. And they both offer him the same money, then that comes down to his decision. And I think that's one of the reasons why Messi went to Inter Miami as well. Is he gonna compete and stuff? Yes, because Messi's a competitor. But he mainly chose Inter Miami for the life. I mean, you see him shopping at the store the other day.
I love that, bro.
He would not, any store in Europe, he would not get out of there alive. And that's the reality of the situation. And that's how far America is in terms of football. I think that will grow a lot with Messi coming in, and especially having the World Cup in 2026. But that's why Messi chose that life, because it's nice and chill. Of course, you can still be competitive on the pitch. He's got his boys now coming from Barcelona a little bit. Club de Amigos, the reunion. It's vibes. And that's why I think Ronaldo rushed to that conclusion, saying that Saudi Arabia is better than MLS. Everyone, Saudi Arabia is competitor. They're still players in somewhat of their prime, when the reality, they're all choosing it for the lifestyle as well and the money.
Yeah. And it's interesting to say, I think he tagged on like an extra line to that, saying that, Serie A was dead before he went to Juve, and that he opened, the pathway for Serie A.
That's the fact.
Yeah, that's 100% a fact. And I think that, I don't know, it's an interesting time to be having that conversation. You can also argue that MLS is way bigger than Saudi. MLS has 29 clubs, and Saudi has, I think, 16, 17, something like that. So
yeah, something like that, yeah.
It has a long way to go to catch up in terms of just sheer size and viability and how much MLS is invested into their league. But
I think MLS is top 10 leagues in the world, and I wouldn't consider Saudi Arabia in that top 10 league.
Yeah,
I think
but they're
Saudi
going
Arabia
for
now. Yeah, I think that right now maybe top 20.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but MLS.
That's a fair assessment, and we'll see how much talent they end up signing. I mean, when you see them going after young stars like Moussa Diaby, right, throwing money and competing with Aston Villa for his signature, that to me, it says everything you need to know about Saudi's ambitions. Right, they're not trying to do what MLS did when they were bringing Pirlo and Lampard and Gerrard over to the league in their retirement
David
years.
Villa, man, don't forget about David Villa.
David Villa, bro, you know what's crazy? David Villa scored more goals for New York City FC than he did with Barcelona. It's actually kind of insane. And he got called up to the Spanish national team 3 years after he retired, based on his Major League Soccer play. Like it's pretty cool when you think about it. But at the same time, right? Like they're going after some of these guys in their prime, trying to make a statement, and of course, just flexing cash along the way. So Saudi will be one to pay attention to. I just don't think it's there yet, in my opinion. I think that, Major League Soccer has so much more going for it. And now that's beefed up in a massive way with Messi, Boosie, Jordi signing. We're potentially going to get Suarez and Iniesta. And trust me, bro, if 2014, 2015 Barca 2.0 reincarnates itself in Major League Soccer, I've already got my Messi kit. Bro, you'll see me. I'm a Messi Dallas fan because I live in this market. I grew up in that academy. But, Inter Miami by my new favorite team, bro. I don't know. We'll see.
I'll watch the weekend. I want to ask you this question, though. Do you think Saudi Arabia will ever pass MLS?
It has the spending power to do it.
Yeah, okay.
Will they do it? It's so difficult, bro, because you hear about guys like.
Well, let's say at this current rate. If you say at this current rate, what they're currently doing, Saudi Arabia, what MLS is currently doing, do you think in 5 years who will be the bigger league?
In 5 years, I'll say this: it hinges upon MLS's ability to pivot in their strategy. If Messi opens up, so here's how I think it goes: if Messi opens up the pathway for them to ease up on the financial rules, like the DP slots, the salary caps, all of those things. If they start to remove some of this, then you start asking yourself, what else can we change about how we do things, like promotion relegation? I think that the USL, which if people aren't familiar with this American soccer pyramid, the level beneath MLS is having a vote as we speak about whether or not promotion relegation needs to be a thing. If they prove that out in the next 3 to 5 years, and MLS grows to from I think right now we're contracted for 32, we're at 29, but 3 expansion clubs have been added. They're signed, but they don't start till 2025. I think by the time we hit 40 clubs in the league, MLS will try to create its own closed version of promotion relegation. They'll have MLS1 and MLS2. I think when that happens, I don't think Saudi stands a chance. They have a lot of money, but they're not going to be able to compete with the fact that like now we can offer the atmosphere that has been created in Europe for all of these years and all these generations, right? It's not going to be the same, but now you'll have real investment coming into Major League Soccer. The fact that the San Diego franchise went for $500 million blows my mind. Like, that's what it costs to buy that team. I think we're going to see a lot more than that crossing into the billions once promotion relegation happens, and you start to see more investment in academies, and more investment in states and cities here in the States that just don't have any local clubs. And you're going to start to see, again, the atmosphere that comes with do or die, right? When there's a relegation battle happening, you and I know best. We saw it. Celta Vigo celebrating like they fucking won the World Cup or some shit when they beat Barcelona in the final game of the season. Like that's the atmosphere, right? You're seeing Everton fans storm the field when they avoid relegation in the Premier League. Like that if that can be recreated in Major League Soccer, Saudi will not stand a chance because it still has to grow to that point. So, but that for me is what has to happen. If that doesn't happen, man, you can argue that all it takes for them to keep spending money at this rate, keep attracting great European talent, and before you know it, they're going to have something. The lifestyle may not be the same as it is here in the States, but that money talks, bro. Those paychecks are going to start talking very, very loudly.
I think in 5 years, when I think at that point Messi will no longer be at Inter Miami, and Saudi are still doing what they're doing, I don't think MLS has a chance.
We'll see.
Because now Saudi are investing and like you said, those players that are about to go into their prime, like bidding for Moussa Diaby at 23, bidding signing Ruben Neves at 26, all these things. Even Sadio Mane, he's still in his prime. He got like a year left. They're making moves, and it'll be very interesting to see how it plays out. Because if they keep doing it at this rate, then MLS either has to start maneuvering some of the rules and trying to compete with them for those signings.
Yeah, I think it will take, like I said, I think promotion relegation opens up more investment from American billionaires, so to speak, right? And then from there, you start being able to compete for those signatures, and you have an ecosystem that a lot of this European talent is used to. So you can kind of, go toe to toe with Saudi if you really had to. But right now, we can't compete on financial levels. We right now, it's like if you're trying to compete, you say we have a league that has Messi in it. And you want to get the visibility that Messi gets by just being here, then come join MLS. But that's really it. It has to evolve. It has to get deeper in terms of trying to recreate what Europe already has. But yeah, bro, I agree wholeheartedly with your statements. Finally, moving away from that piece of it all, we've talked about the growth of the game on this side of the world, and not just Major League Soccer, bro. I will say across Canada, US, Mexico, just us creating a fan culture that you yourself have seen, right? I mean, you recently visited Spain. You know as well as I do, the culture bleeds into every part of everyday life. Like, even if language is a barrier, you can probably at least still have relative conversations around football that kind of lowers that obstacle to entry for a lot of fans who are traveling to that part of the world. We don't have that here yet. 2026 World Cup may create some of that. Maybe we'll have a culture here by the time that tournament gets here, but as of now, right, Messi can still go walk around, shop around in person by himself because that culture around footy doesn't exist here yet. What do you think it would take for us to recreate, or not recreate, but to form our own unique North American football culture here?
It would take a lot, because I think right now America's at a point where a lot of the sports athlete, if you're not in the city where they're from, they won't, get that unless you're the big boys. Like, I don't know, you probably watch basketball, like
Yep.
Devin Booker, for example. If he goes to, what's the random state, like Colorado, and he's shopping there, I don't think he'll be swarmed. I think LeBron James would be because he's an icon. And I think America at the point that only big Hollywood people will do that. I think if Brad Pitt goes to a random store in Colorado, he wouldn't get swarmed because everyone knows who Brad Pitt is. So you're asking America to essentially care about everything and everyone. I don't think America has that capability, if you know what I'm trying to say. I think for them to reach that point, they would have to do what Saudi Arabia is doing and more, because them bringing up their own talent will only get the eyes in MLS fans and their local club. So for them to get huge eyes and stuff like that, they would have to do not what Saudi Arabia is doing, chucking money at it and hoping for the best, but attracting those players who will bring those eyes to me and you, who we already know, who I will swarm at the shopping center, and then me telling the people, this is this guy, we did this, that they swarm with me, and that all grows. So I think I would probably bet that the MLS, unless they do something big by bringing those big players in, would never get to that point. I think it'd only be like the soccer heads, you could say. I think America is just that kind of country where there's so many people who have so many different interests that unless you're in a state where it's just nothing but soccer, it will be very difficult for them to get to that point. You look at Spain, it's a small country like this. England's like this. France is like this. When you have America, that's huge. So I think definitely they can, the soccer can rise to fame in America and can probably compete with the likes of the NHL and basketball and football as well. But to get to that point where Messi cannot walk into a superstore freely, that's where the challenge comes in.
Yeah, I agree, man. And it's probably a hot take. I think that's probably a take that people don't want to hear in the States, is that I agree with you. I think it's going to take a lot. A lot of people in the States believe that, it's just, especially these propagandists on Twitter, bro, the guys who are just shitting on most MLS fans because they believe that they're upholding a system that is exclusionary, right? That's leaving out things like promotion, relegation, and that's all it's going to take. Once we get pro rel, there's going to be investment, and there's going to be all it takes. A culture will be created. I don't think so. I think there's so much of a fight for attention, dude. Even if you try to put NBA, put NFL, put college football, put MLB, put NHL all on the side, okay, all of those major sports on the side. And if you just sit down on the couch on a Saturday and try to watch every form of footy in the middle of September that you can watch in a day, you're on the couch all weekend. Like there's so much. If you want to sit down and watch Premier League, Bundesliga, La Liga, maybe some Liga on thrown in, Major League Soccer in the evening, Liga MX late night, dude, you're on the couch all day long. So just from the sport perspective alone, there's almost too much to watch. And then you mix in the fact that during the fall, American football's in season, college and pro, like I mentioned before, NHL, MLB, NBA. There's so much of a fight for attention here where other countries, like you just mentioned, don't have that fight. Like they don't have to worry about it. You can argue
one thing only.
Exactly. Some parts in Europe have to have cricket that compete with it, right? Or maybe down in Australia, you have rugby that competes with it. But like that's really it, bro. Like Mexico maybe has baseball. And like that's it. There isn't this other massive fight for attention. So we have a long way to
Mexico? I didn't know that.
Yeah, bro. Yeah, Mexico baseball is actually lit. It's it's one of the few sports in Mexico. As long as the sport itself is cheap to play, baseball, soccer, right? We're probably pretty good at it. Anything that requires a ton of investment, that's not our sport, bro. Like anything else.
I was just thinking as you were saying that, like the only thing in America that everyone will tune in and watch is the presidential election.
Yeah,
there's nothing else that the entire country will unite in. Whether it's even if it's America's doing the Olympics or competing in a World Cup or anything like that, you have just a couple of people who will understand it and they will support it, and maybe they win gold. They're like, "Oh, good job," and that's it. But realistically, only the election is the only thing that gets everyone. You can talk to someone in the street and say, this or that. I want this. I want that. I can go in the streets in Barcelona and say, "Yo, Celta Vigo, midfielder, Vesga, what do you think?" "Oh, I think this. Hugo Mayo, the right back, just retired, the icon for them, blah, blah, blah." So they'll understand that. I can say to them about Premier League and things like that. But And that's the culture they have. With
Yeah.
America, it's just too diverse and too versatile that it'll be difficult to get everyone on board with one thing.
Yeah, I agree with you, and that's why I say, like, when people tell me, I get people tell me on Twitter all the time, like, in goals, for Goals TV, our mantra is like, we want to make soccer cool in America. And people all tell me all the time, dude, you're so late. I'm like, nope, no, we're not. We're so early. We're not even close to being anywhere. Like, our definitions of cool, quote unquote, are so different. Like, I see, if you had any sense of what the culture's like overseas, bro, you would realize how far behind we actually are. And I don't know if we'll ever be able to create it. But I think that we can get relatively close for how big and how spread out this part of the world really is. It's not just the US. Canada's a massive country. Mexico, massive country. Like, there's just so much competing for people's attention that we have to be realistic, but it is possible to go after it. So that I just wanted to
I
get
think
your
to put I think to put into perspective, the Champions League group stage draws, when I watch them, the current viewers are like 50,000. At the peak of the draw, it's getting 70, maybe 100. I was covering the Gold Cup draw. There's like 600.
Yeah.
And that's the reality of it. That's Gold Cup. That's big for the country. This is just Champions League, let alone. I think the World Cup draw, you're looking at. I think I was watching in my car, there was like 500,000 concurrent viewers, and the whole entire live stream got like 10 million. That's what you're competing with. Of course, World Cup is global. Maybe that was the best comparison, but the Champions League one, I think, is a viable one where you're having 50 to 100,000 watching just the group stage, not even like the Champions League, the quarterfinal draws, which I think will have more concurrent viewers. But then you have Gold Cup, which barely breaks 1,000.
Yeah, man, I agree wholeheartedly. So, look, man, it's everyone has a different opinion. I think for the easy answer for any person that I've asked that question is just time. I think we need more time. A lot of it. I think it's going to take us a long time to get there. I don't think Messi fixes this problem. I think he's a good. There is going to be a before Messi and an after Messi when it comes to the era of Major League Soccer, and everything, all the changes that we're going to see in the league before and after his time here. But I don't think he's going to be able to create such massive impact and change that it just changes the entire trajectory of where we're going with soccer in this country. I think there's going to be a lot more that has to come along with his arrival, and we'll see how it all unfolds, bro. Look, man, before we wrap up, I do want to give you a quick shout, or at least the floor, I should say, for anything that you want to give a shout out to. I know that, like, your channel is growing, bro. You have thousands of subscribers, a lot of fans who support what you do. Anything you want to mention before we wrap up?
Yeah, just follow me on Twitter and Instagram at BarcaBoy103, and then of course check out the YouTube channel, which is BarcaBoy. That's really all I have to say.
I love it, bro. I love it, man. And guys, like you mentioned before, go check him out. I'm going to link BarcaBoy103's channel and his socials down below in the description. Go check all those out. Go subscribe, especially if you're a Barca fan. I will say this, as a Barca fan, anytime this guy uploads a video, I'm trying to get the latest news, get my fill. At the end of the day, sometimes the news isn't always that great. It's part of being a supporter of this club. It's the highs and lows of being a fan, but at the end of the day, it's delivered to me in a way that makes me feel knowledgeable, and I can at least say that. So again, Hafed, thank you so much for joining on the pod today, bro. I really appreciate it. Some spicy takes, some great content from this episode. We'll see what other Barca fans really think. Guys, from everybody here at Box to Box, my name is Jose. That's BarcaBoy103. We'll catch you guys next time.